Hi, I'm Judi Cleary, and I am a certified dementia practitioner, a licensed assisted living administrator, and a nationally certified activity director, and I've been working with people with Alzheimer's and other types of dementia for over 25 years. And I'm here today to talk to you about communication and dementia. I'm going to be using a laptop to show you some images, so you may see me referring to that as well. In this training module, we're going to discuss ways to enhance our communication when we're working with somebody who has dementia. Changes to the brain as the disease progresses cause communication abilities to change. A person is not able to make memories of the message that's being given, and a person has trouble focusing on the message and is often distracted by noises or other things that are going on while the message is being given. Sometimes other sounds in the room can be really overwhelming, or things that are happening internally to the person can prevent them from being able to communicate. Also, a person with dementia, especially in the later stages, has really difficult time hearing certain sounds. For example, F and S sounds the same, and so words that start with S or F can often be confused. Also, because of the memory loss, the meaning of certain words is no longer understood. So some words don't mean anything to the person with dementia anymore. So it's really important to use gestures and facial expressions when we're communicating to give more clues as to what it is we're saying. A person, especially in the later stages of dementia, is not able to produce the correct words to make needs or feelings known. If you look at the image, you'll see how much of the brain has deteriorated and is just simply not there anymore. And so that person doesn't have the ability to use certain words because they're no longer there. At first, a person might describe the item or describe the word or substitute the word that she's looking for. For example, if a person wants to say pencil, she might say, you know, that thing that you write with, it's yellow, and that would be a way of substituting or describing the word. But later, she might use sounds or word salad, words that don't really go together, but she's trying to communicate with her tone and her inflection and rhythm in a way that the listener might still be able to validate her feelings. For example, a person might say, but it was, I was so, and then we can understand that the person's trying to express her frustration or her anger, and we can validate those feelings even though she didn't actually use the words. For the moderate stages, some tips would be for better communication. Don't ask the person questions that require detailed answers. The person doesn't have the words, and the person also doesn't have the memory to produce those type of detailed answers. So an example of that would be if someone was to say, so Mom, tell me what happened at the doctor's appointment. Did you remember to ask him about the vitamins that you were taking, and also how much did you weigh? That would be too much detail for a person in the moderate stages to handle. Offer a person simple choices and show rather than using words, or do it at the same time, because the person might answer yes or no, but is really not sure what it was you were asking because the meaning of the word might not have been there. So for example, instead of saying, do you want to wear the blue shirt or the red shirt, which is a great simple way to ask a question like that, you could also hold up the blue shirt and the red shirt. Keep in mind that in the moderate stages, the person with dementia is aware that she's supposed to understand, but she doesn't. To be socially appropriate, she'll pretend to understand, and she might pretend to remember things by confabulating, which means making up things that sound like it might have really happened, or giving vague answers. So if you think about yourself in the grocery store when you run into someone that you think you know, and obviously they know you, usually you're going to pretend that you know them because that's the socially appropriate thing to do. And so you're going to say, oh, hi! And then you're going to confabulate by trying to figure out how you know them by saying, do you ever see any of the old gang? And that's the same thing that a person in the moderate stages does. Don't quiz the person by asking questions such as, "Do you remember what time I told you your appointment was?" Or, "What is my name?" Because that's simply just going to embarrass the person. The person already knows that they're supposed to know more than they know, and they're trying to be socially appropriate by pretending that they remember. So an alternative for someone in the moderate stages is to be sure and call a person by the name he or she relates to. For example, if Mrs. Jackson never called herself Mrs. Jackson and her first name is Alice, but everyone always called her Maddie, then you want to call her Maddie because she doesn't know who Mrs. Jackson is when you're referring to her. And so it's important to always introduce yourself and then ask the person's name. That way you know what name that person relates to. And be sure and start every sentence or every time you're starting an initiation of communication, use that name that that person relates to. Be sure and approach from the front. There's no spatial awareness, and there's a lot of peripheral vision that's lost in the moderate stages of dementia. And so it's important that you're facing the person when you initiate communication. Provide good facial expression so the person knows how you're feeling, and use a direct, friendly tone. Be sure and make eye contact when you're communicating, and so that means it's important to always be at eye level with the person or below their eye level, not standing above them. Give the person time to receive your message and then for them to communicate a response, and sometimes that can take up to 60 seconds. So it's really a long time when you count those 60 seconds when you're waiting for a response. So be sure that you're allowing enough time. If you don't get a response, try the same phrase again. So for example, I might say, "How about a glass of orange juice?" And the person doesn't respond. I wait, no response. And then I would want to say, "How about a glass of orange juice?" And then the person might not respond, and maybe I could try a different word because a glass might not have meaning anymore, or orange juice might not have meaning anymore. So I might say, "Are you thirsty? Would you like a drink?" Or a different phrase to give that same message. Be sure and use the sound of your voice, your volume, your inflection, your tone, your rhythm, to communicate the feelings, and be aware that words are secondary. Keep in mind that only 7% of our communication with one another in the moderate stages is through words, and the rest is all through how we look, appear, and sound to the person who we're communicating with. Be sure not to ask a yes or no question if you don't want the answer to be no. Keep it very simple. Say things like, "Come with me. Let's stand up." Don't say things like, "Do you want to go to dinner?" Because if the answer is no, then you've just set yourself up for failure. Some alternatives in the severe stages. Go slow. Be aware that verbal communication has very little value in the severe stages. Be sure and get the person's attention before beginning any communication. Try holding up your hand, reaching out your hand to initiate gentle contact before any verbal communication. Use gestures and facial expressions more than words. And be aware that music, rhythm, you can try singing, any type of vocabulary or verbal skills might be lost, but a person's part of their brain that reacts to music and rhythm is a part of the brain that sometimes can still be active even though verbal communication's been lost. In the severe stages, it's really important to have a good physical connection rather than a verbal connection. Thank you.